Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Trying to kick me out of San Diego, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Don't think, Axel, it makes my dick itch.
That guy is the absolute fucking best non-actor actor
Yes.
in the history of the world.
When he first appears in, for our purposes in Beverly Hills Cop 2, it looks like he came in his own clothes.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like he's wearing a costume.
Absolutely.
It just looks like he turned up that day and started talking.
And when Jeffrey wakes him up in his house, and you just see that little nightstand with his watch and shit next to it.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, that looks like his house.
Yeah, I think so. It's along with the references to the auto industry.
Yeah.
It feels most like Detroit when you're with Chief Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, who tricked my ass?
He appears in the flesh for 2 movies and then in photographic form.
Yep.
In the most recent sequel.
Yeah.
So, we're familiar with how that goes. Do you really think that after, 30 years, his picture would still be up in that office for any reason?
I know.
They also must have gone through a few... We're not assuming that Paul Reiser got the job immediately.
No.
After Todd, so there was probably a few chiefs in between. Why aren't their photographs up on the wall?
It's still barely believable because he lost his life in the line of duty and they all worked together. But
I still would have...
It's straining the plausibility for all the reasons you just laid out.
I would have appreciated from a from a set dressing perspective, 1 or 2 random chiefs there too,
right.
Just to make it make sense in world to me.
I like that photo of them together though. That's good Photoshop. Him and Eddie Murphy at their graduation.
Oh, at the academy.
At
the
academy?
With Reiser. Yeah. Maybe it was probably early screen test for Police Academy.
Well, here we are. Kind of a just really interesting, seminal kind of series because of how much that first movie blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't know this, but how much it kind of took over in the culture. And
I'm aware.
I was just singing Axel F as we were getting on, and you can't even imagine that song was playing on Top 40 radio.
Well, weirdly enough, it still was in my youth. Not my youth. While when I was college age, but in its Crazy Frog iteration.
Okay.
So, in terms of it definitely has cultural longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Even because in the 2005, 2006, there was a remix by a Scandinavian cartoon frog, which is how you've stuck around long enough to make it really big. Do you know the Crazy Frog?
I don't think I do.
So basically, they remix. I'm saying generously remix.
Yes.
The Axel F theme, but essentially they added on what was supposed to be a cartoon frog going bing 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 bong like that in the downbeats.
Well, now you sound like Trump.
So it goes da 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 bing 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 bong like that. So this is a real thing. I know the more I say about it, the more it sounds like madness, but just go with me because it's all true.
All right, fine.
I was aware of the impact that it had on culture, and I suggested this series, and I had an inkling that it was that it was an important film series,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm drawn to film series that straddle different eras of cinema.
That's the thing that is interesting to me, because you have 3 really, truly, vastly different sequels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for us, the Everything Sequel podcast, to sort of dissect each one.
Yeah.
And see what was going on in movies at the time, what was going on with the movie's star at the time.
Yep.
And all of that, plus certain directors, and plus you have this outlier that's sort of a new thing in sequels of, well, we haven't seen them in 40 years, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I started to watch them, I realized even how historically significant this series was, because these movies tell the story of the decline of cinema. So, because the first sequel is arguably even more cinematic than the original.
Okay.
In that it begs to be seen on a big screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a low bar for you, but for a theater skeptic, even a theater skeptic cinema consumer like me, understands that that's a movie that would absolutely shine being projected in a theater.
Sure.
And then it's followed up by a movie that is a product of the era of convergence in literally every way possible. And then that is followed up by a sequel which can't even be seen in theaters.
Yeah.
It can only
not allowed.
It's only available through a streaming platform. So that's the story of where cinema is now and how we got there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I gradually realized that as I was going through the movies. We started this podcast many years ago, talking about the Superman series has every kind of sequel,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know, it's as true about Beverly Hills Cop, but also Beverly Hills Cop has the historical arc to it as well.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, and everything you said about tracking where certain stars and directors are at in their career, as well as the industry in general.
Mm-hmm.
These movies are never less than interesting.
I agree.
I never once regretted the choice to tackle them.
No.
But that's kind of often in spite of what I thought about them as movies.
Fine. Yeah, I'm most interested to talk to you about it because, well, of everything you just laid out, and I know where your loyalties lie, and what you think of sequel cinema and sort of IP cinema,
right?
And the state of it today.
I like that IP cinema.
Yeah,
I like it. And
so to gauge where, that's why I love the fact that we're gonna rank and declare.
Yeah,
because I need you to put your money where your mouth is. I'm very curious to see what it is you really think about these 3 movies.
Yeah, and just like another word about one of the biggest surprises for this series for me were the directors who were involved. I didn't know Tony Scott directed the first sequel.
Okay.
And I didn't know John Landis directed the third sequel until about 3/4 of the second sequel until about 3/4 of the way through.
Really?
Was when and it wasn't a realization.
Was one of the reasons you said, who the fuck did they get to direct this? Was it a child? And then
yeah, exactly. Like 3/4 of the way through, I said, I need to know who directed this. And of all the names that I was expecting to see, John Landis was not one of them.
I was going to say this joke, but today, and we'll tackle this at some point in the future as well, but because it's John Landis, and because that movie's 94, and we're a few years away from a movie sequel we haven't tackled yet, but I swear to God, I thought, I think he used this movie as prep to suck at directing Blues Brothers 2000.
Blues Brothers 2000, yeah, literally. I had a mental flash of Blues Brothers 2000.
Yes.
Over the image of a, you know, wherever we were in Wonderworld at the time. I thought, well, yeah, this is context. Exactly what you said. This is context for Blues Brothers 2000. This is how we got there. But anyway, and then, so you have two auteur directors, right?
Uh-huh.
Whether or not this represents the best of either of their works is, you know, is highly debatable. But they have a certain style that they bring
I'm ready
to
to debate. I'm excited.
They have a certain style and vision that they bring to their movies, which is undeniable. And the director of Axel F. And so the first two directors were hired because they could put themselves into the movie. The director of Axel F. was hired to put nothing of himself into the movie, to literally let the content speak for itself, add nothing new, rely on what had been done before by the people who had made these movies before.
Well, I was very surprised.
He was a literal ringer.
You know what I wrote down? What's that guy's name? Mark Malloy.
Mark Malloy. His other movies. In quotes.
I just wrote down nothing. The word nothing.
Nothing. Literally, the only thing proximate to a film that he's directed was a promotional video for Apple.
Yeah, right. He's did a few of those.
As close. He's done a few of those, but in a way, that's the perfect candidate for the type of movie they wanted to make. Completely anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Will not fuck with the formula in any possible way, by definition, because this guy has no ability to direct beyond doing the job of directing. So they went for exactly the reverse of the directors that they had before, which to me is fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think and in, you know, maybe my prejudices about IP cinema are feeding into here, but I think that is by design, to kind of keep it as as close to being a kind of microcosm of the original movie, and maybe the second one as well, as possible, by keeping the director out of it.
Maybe, but I don't think that's specific to this series.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
But it's particularly egregious in Axel F, because, you know, normally when we have a young director or a novice director, they've done something.
Yeah.
They've done a short, they've done one or two movies under their belts. This guy did nothing. I
know, but I mean, I'm ready to fight with you a little bit, I think, because look, I'm not going to defend him too much, but I am going to say,
no,
I am surprised that movie looks, what's the right word? I don't know if competent is the right word, but I mean, you know,
it's not.
I don't know. I just found myself...
It's the competency of Martin Brest. It's the competency of Tony Scott. It's the competency...
or lack thereof.
Of John Landis. You know.
But I guess all I'll say is, you know, it looks like a movie. It doesn't...
I disagree. I don't think it looks...
It looks like a television movie, but that's what it is.
Not even. It's not even a television movie.
It is a television movie.
Well, no, streaming is not streaming is not television. So that's the philosophical part of my argument. The aesthetic part of my argument is that television movies are a higher class of cinema than streaming movies.
Yeah, but it's watched on a television.
Possibly. Not necessarily.
Oh, you're right. Phones, computers.
But you can watch TV on your phones. You can watch movies on your phones. But yeah, I think streaming movies are their own thing, and in the pecking order, they're a bastardization of a bastardization, which is that they're TV movies that aren't even good enough to be TV movies. In my mind.
All right. Well, we'll argue more. We'll argue more later.
Yeah.
What was your sense of these? Not so much Axel F.
Mm-hmm.
What was your sense of the public reception of those first two sequels going into this?
I imagine even though critics, so these are my guesses, okay? And you can tell me now, or you can tell me now if I'm right or wrong, or just wait till the episodes. I don't think the critics liked Beverly Hills Cop 2. I seem to remember Leonard Maltin giving it a really scathing review. That's my only context for that. I bet it has some fans.
Okay.
Because it's a Beverly Hills Cop movie and it's a Tony Scott movie. I think it has a lot of fans. I know Beverly Hills Cop 3 was a famous stinker.
Yeah.
Both with critics and audiences. And I believe that the reception, although I don't quite know how you quantify this, to Axel F was generally positive.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, are all of those somewhat accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that was my and yeah, my only evidence, and my beyond perception, my only evidence for that is that one Leonard Maltin review of Beverly Hills Cop, and just the rest of it is kind of context clues of what I know people think of Tony Scott, what I imagine fans are willing to put up with in the Beverly Hills Cop series, and what they're not. So,
all right, fine. Well, where to go from here? I mean, do you have anything else to say? Overview of the series before we?
Well, I guess the
one
element we haven't, the other headline we haven't addressed is Eddie Murphy as a film star, I suppose, and the changing fortunes of Eddie Murphy over the course of these movies, and it's very cyclical.
Yeah.
He goes from being on top to distinctly not on top, back to being somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Post Dolomite. It's interesting, though. I mean, my perception of when Eddie Murphy went off the boil, both critically and commercially, happens a lot later than it actually happened. Like, I think that, because 94, I think is early for him. It's like early for him to be making such a poorly performing movie.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly before he started making nothing but those. Right? I mean, because he's still got the Nutty Professor wave.
Yeah, I don't know. There are different.
It's weird that that's the nadir. But then I suppose he didn't make a Beverly Hills Cop movie, in the early 2000s when Lord knows what that would have been.
Well, and most of that has to do with how poorly Beverly Hills Cop 3 did. And both on screen, it's known as a turd, but off screen, it's also known as an oddball movie. There's lots of history between him and John Landis. How they even made that movie together, from what I understand, feels like a miracle, considering
if you'd have told me that
the ups and downs of their relationship. But
if you had told me they were never in the same room when that movie was being made, I'd believe you.
I could tell you that there were times Eddie Murphy wasn't in the room, and that John Landis was actually playing him.
No, what? So wait, John Landis is doing blackface on this movie?
Well, I think he's just playing shoulder, maybe.
As if this movie's reputation isn't bad enough, we have blackface into the mix. Also, this is not a movie that needs another director's cameo. There are several of those already.
It has enough.
It doesn't need the Hitchcock. It's already got quite a few Hollywood directors making appearances.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about... I think there's 2 waves of bottoms in Eddie Murphy's career.
Yeah, I think I agree.
And so... And I'm looking at his filmography now. I mean, there are movies... Upon seeing 48 Hours, you boldly declared, I now like another 48 hours less.
Yes.
And critics didn't like that movie quite as much. But that led to Boomerang and The Distinguished Gentleman, these kinds of movies. But by the time you get to like this Beverly Hills Cop 3 and then Vampire in Brooklyn, he's really in a low spot. But then he comes with The Nutty Professor. But even that is, you've got things like Metro and The Holy Man. But he's got a Dr. Dolittle in there, and then he gets to Life and Bowfinger.
Never good for anyone's career.
He's got this movie, Bowfinger, and then Nutty Professor 2, and then he gets into the Shrek world. And it feels like we're in another kind of ascending, but then we get to sort of, the I Spies, the Daddy Daycares, the Haunted Mansions.
The first Haunted Mansion.
The first Haunted Mansion, correct. So
they perfected that formula.
There seems like a double dip there.
He's
maybe
the comeback kid.
There might be 3, because then we get to Norbit. Like, he gets nominated for Dreamgirls, goes to Norbit. We have another Shrek sequel. That's Shrek the Third. But then we get to things like Meet Dave and...
Pluto Nash is somewhere in there. The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Yep.
So, judging by that filmography, even though my perception is that he's bottomed out a few times, he seems like the comeback kid.
Yeah.
He's never more than 2 or 3 years away from a hit, or if not a hit, a movie that captures people's attention.
Yeah, right.
In a good way.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to reevaluate what we think about
it's interesting.
Eddie Murphy's career.
Because it...
Also, a couple of things there. First of all, I don't know who's out there saying, let's remake Dr. Dolittle, a movie that famously bankrupted a studio. How anyone got that greenlit, I do not know.
And then again.
And there was another one, wasn't there, with...
Robert Downey.
Robert Downey. I was going to say Hugh Jackman, but Robert Downey Jr. I was actually going to say Andy Serkis, which is a better idea.
Just because there were lots of animals.
No,
I was
thinking of him.
It must have included Andy Serkis.
I was thinking of him as Dr. Dolittle and but he could also do Dr. Dolittle and the animals. Take that bit out. I will actually want to pitch that to a studio. Take that out. And the other thing I was going to say, at one point you said, goes to Norbit, and I thought you sounded like a lawyer in court. Your Honor, goes to Norbit. Sustained.
I have no choice but to sustain.
goes to Norbit. Yeah, he really is the comeback kid, isn't he? And he's had like several mini comebacks in the past few years through Dolomite and reappearing on SNL
right
a couple of times to acclaim.
Looking at his filmography, it looks more like he gets down and out for no more than 3 or 4 films
in Beverly Hills.
And then that's another thing, is that we're doing this Beverly Hills series, but man, there was a fascination like late 80s to early 90s with Beverly Hills, because
even longer.
Yeah, Troop Beverly Hills, Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
The Beverly Hillbillies?
Beverly Hill, yeah, true. Yeah. 90210, of course.
The film version. The 90210. And all the way through to Beverly Hills Chihuahua, which, as I can testify to, because I've seen all 3 of those movies, thanks to my 7-year-old son, stretches well into the 2010s.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
People want to know what's going on with the rich.
He was down and out in a period, you were saying?
Yeah, but all I meant was, it seems like the cultural consciousness or idea of Eddie Murphy is that he has these huge lulls
Yeah.
that are sustained for like a decade, but he ends up always kind of coming back, and then he might
And he's
have
also,
a few, but he has later on, when you got to like Meet Dave,
yeah,
and Pluto Nash, those movies took him down a peg in a way, because they were, not just famous flops, but I mean, dazzling lights famous flops,
He seems, put it this way, he seems like an actor slash comedian who is willing to burn goodwill on vanity projects.
Mm-hmm.
And he just happens to be that talented that he can always climb, he can always crawl his way back from the worst disaster. So in a way, it kind of does the opposite of going to Norbit, because if he wasn't as gifted as he was, he'd have been washed up 8 or 9 times over by this point. But he's always bounced back, and a lot of that is just due to how winning and talented he is as a performer.
Yeah, I think so.
And it really can't be underestimated, because the obstacles he's faced in his career, if he's able to overcome even half of those, he's got to have something that people want to see again and again, despite the fact that they might be worried that it's going to be terrible from past experience.
Sure.
So yeah, an interesting figure in cinema and comedy, and of course these movies are the sort of nexus of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Are you prepared, sir?
I think so. Yeah, I think I've made my choices. Was this? I mean, it's only 3 movies, but was ranking a difficult process for you?
It was not.
Okay. For me there was a clear front runner, and then there were 2 movies that I had to that I think where the problems are equal but different.
Okay.
And so I had to assess which was more problematic for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
One of these movies,
I knew that's what was going to happen with you.
Because one of them is IP cinema.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, the struggle I have is, you can never forget that one of these movies is a promotional film for a non-existent theme park. Okay? You can never forget that.
It's very
when
hard.
You're ranking.
Very hard to forget
It's really
that.
hard. It's really hard to ever forget that. And that should automatically put it right at the bottom. But yeah, there's another movie that is offensively anonymous in a way that potentially bothers me more.
Okay.
So I have to. I'm still struggling with that decision between that and declaration of good or bad. I think I'm pretty clear on.
Yeah, I figured you would be. What a disappointment to me you are.
Well, so this was just automatic for you. You instantly knew.
Yeah, I mean, I
where to place them.
I kept as open a mind as I possibly could.
Oh, well, that's where you went wrong.
It's funny that we're doing this series because I think back in the summer, knowing that Axel F was coming out, I had rewatched 1 and 2, but I had not watched 3.
No.
And then watched Axel F. And I hadn't seen 3 in a long time. And
that's how Axel F would want you to watch it as well.
Not necessarily. Hang on.
Yeah, yes, we'll get there. But I have a lot to say about cherry picking.
Of course you're right.
Canon.
Of course you're right. They got to do some retconning.
Well, not necessarily retconning, just cherry picking.
Yeah, but what I wanted to keep as open mind as possible about a movie I hadn't seen in a long time, and came to discover it was exactly what I thought it was.
Well, I have no Well, if we're talking about the same movie, well, I know you are talking about Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yeah.
I had no preconceptions about it, and I have a first impression of it, but it's still quite amorphous to me as a movie. So
I understand.
I don't have the and it definitely means I don't have the baggage of, because we've been here before, haven't we? With like Speed 2 Cruise Control and what's another, like a movie that you wanted to hate because it wasn't what you were expecting it to be.
Me specifically?
Yeah, wasn't there another one where a movie that you took against and were able to... Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was that sort of situation?
Oh, hell no.
As well,
I mean, I said there, when we watched it, I said there was...
Yeah, you said the first half is watchable.
I said there was more that was watchable than I remembered it, but it's still a very terrible movie.
Yeah. So I certainly didn't have that baggage. I don't think... I'm not saying that it's what anyone expected or wanted, but I don't know if it's entirely without its merits.
Well, I'm eager to discuss them with you.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, and although you won't believe this because of your low opinion of me. But
you're right. I don't believe
you. It's just getting lower and lower by the minute. Apparently, I was fully prepared to embrace the IP cinema sequel at the time of watching. It is harder for me because I have certain expectations of movies and of stories told in the franchise mold that the current crop of sequel storytelling just has no interest in. Like, in-world fidelity is just an
fidelity to what?
To IP cinema.
The previous...
To everything that we're told about Axel Foley.
Okay.
I mean, he's a fucking undercover cop and everyone in Detroit knows who he is. The first thing we see... Anyway, we'll get there. But lack of in-world fidelity is one of my biggest beefs with Axel F. But,
I can argue against that. Well, we'll wait.
You can. You will do it unsuccessfully. Because that movie... That is it's like all IP cinema essentially is a misremembering of the franchises it comes from, and this is no exception to that.
Yeah, all right. We'll see.
And plus, anyway, we'll save it. We'll save it because remember, there's a lot to talk about because it's a 2-hour movie.
Just under, sir. Just under.
Yeah, you play fast and loose with that.
It's like an hour and 54 minutes.
You're saying that's yeah. Wait, you're saying that's not overlong for what the movie is?
I'm saying it's not 2 hours. That's all I'm saying.
So, anyway, so I might have to go back and forth between two of the movies, but I know what my top is.
I know what my top is.
And I think our top is the same.
It's got to be the same.
Yeah.
It's a no doubter.
Yeah.
That movie's Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yes, indeed.
And
yeah,
here's the thing. I think I think you were right what you said, that critics didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But you also said that you thought, it had its fans because of Tony Scott.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, I would say that culturally, I think most people thought what everybody thinks about a sequel that comes out. Well, it's not as good as the first.
Right.
And very few sequels are.
Yeah.
So, everyone says it like they take it personally, But and even when I saw it, I said I had a good time. It's clearly not as good, but I had a good time.
Yeah.
But as the years have gone on, I have appreciated that movie more and more and more and more.
Okay.
And for one specific reason, and I'll get more into that, I think, in the episode, but this is in an era where I could handle, tolerate, and stand Tony Scott more than I could in later years.
Interesting. Yeah.
We talked about before, go ahead and let Tim Burton be a full Tim Burton in his movies.
Yes.
I'm not sure I like Tony Scott at full Tony Scott strength.
He's got to have...
For me personally, I need him tempered. When he's tempered, I really like his movies.
Give him a cage.
Yeah.
Whether it's a franchise or a screenwriter like Tarantino or something.
Right.
That can... Something to cut the Tony Scott with.
Yeah.
Some baby likes it.
Yeah, exactly.
To cut the Tony's pure Colombian.
Come on, I'm not gonna sell pure Tony Scott to the fucking neighborhood. Gotta cut that shit.
Wait a minute. Does cocaine feature in any of these movies?
Yeah.
No. It does. What are they? Is it in the original, cocaine?
Cocaine's in the original, and it's in Axel F.
Oh, it's in Axel.
Actually, it's in 2 as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if cocaine didn't make it into at least 2 of these movies. Yeah, I mean, I think for different reasons, but it similarly, and this might go along with what you're saying about Tony Scott. When I started to watch it, and I was watching it for the first time, I began to think, this historically is in the pocket of sequel cinema.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's far enough, it's not it's far enough away from early sequels that
Planet
they
of
can
the Apes
fluidly,
and such.
Yeah. So they can fluidly throw out a sequel which frankly it's a gratuitous sequel. It's not a story that demands to be continued.
Right.
In fact, everything about the original suggests that the story should stop there.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to work pretty hard. They've kind of written themselves into a corner, and they have to find a way to get out of that corner in the sequel. So it's counterintuitive. It's a counterintuitive sequel, but it's made fluidly because sequels are kind of an established genre format by that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also it's early enough that it's not overcomplicated. So we're not trying to remake, we're not trying to do prequels, we're not trying to do reboots.
Right.
So it really is nicely in the pocket of where
it has a formula. It's sticking to the formula.
But also, it I think, and I kind of think the same about where Tony Scott is in regards to his directorial career. I agree with you. I think he needs a cage. And this franchise is a good cage to put on him.
Yeah.
And they dedicate, he and the writers and everyone involved with the movie dedicates their time to doing what sequels can certainly do, which is to up the ante on literally everything.
Yeah. Right.
And it works well. It works well on that level, and also changing the generic emphasis. I think the first movie, as far as I remember, is
from just a few months ago.
Comedy Yeah. Well, society's changed a lot in that time. it's a comedy movie with a sidecar of action. This is an action movie with a sidecar of comedy.
Mm.
So, I appreciate that it tries to that the balance shifts, because
That's an inversion, yeah.
That's doing something different, but it's still within the goalposts of what the original did. It's just shifting the balance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a director like Tony Scott, so that's the obvious route to go as well. So for all of those reasons, it's top of the list for me, and I agree with what you're saying as well, that it's a good example of this director
mm-hmm.
and what he's capable of.
All right.
And a satisfying sequel that you don't mind being you don't mind is a gratuitous one that never needed to be made.
Right.
And that's all a skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny when you watch it. When you watch it, that's the one thing about the Beverly Hills Cop series, and that movie specifically, is because as you watch it, whether you enjoy it or not, I guess more even specifically if you enjoy it, you have this nagging feeling that there's something wrong. And that something wrong is this. We didn't need any sequels for Beverly Hills Cop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a mistake. It's a kind of mistake they keep making. They keep writing themselves in this corner, because if you're gonna have a sequel to Beverly Hills Cop, at the end of the original, he should move to L.A.
Mm-hmm.
and be permanently based there.
Yeah.
And every time they bring him back to Detroit, so much real estate is spent in every subsequent sequel of how do we get him back to Beverly Hills, because by the law of averages, he should never go back there in his lifetime for any reason.
Right.
It was a total anomaly that
it was a one-time deal.
Yeah. And this is
and that's
essentially...
the thing. That's maybe the weakest part of. Well, maybe I'll save it for the movie itself.
But that's it. This is a film series that is where each movie is based around the story of a man goes on a working vacation 3 times in a row. Well, 4 times in a row if you count the original, but three times subsequent to the one that any of us could experience at any point in our lives. After that,
sure.
It gets harder and harder to believe he well, I don't know. One of the things I'd say in defense, I guess, appreciation of Axel F, is that his return in that movie feels more organic than the previous 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like they sort of use the time between the sequels to kind of deepen the connective tissue to that community,
right? To
the point where it doesn't feel like such a leap that he would take a trip there.
Agreed.
But in 2 and 3, I mean, it's just nonsense, the idea that he keeps going back and keeps getting involved in situations not even just in LA, but we'll have to have the conversation about where the fuck Wonderworld is, because it's not in Beverly Hills.
No.
So the movie shouldn't even really be called Beverly Hills Cop.
That's it's funny, because as we were talking about this,
Anaheim Cop.
I was, as we were talking about this, I kept thinking of what they could have done, and you could do the complete inversion, which is whatever. For some reason, Taggart and Rosewood have to go to Detroit in the second movie.
Yeah.
But then what do you call it? Do you call it Detroit Cops? They want the name. They want it Beverly Hills Cop.
Rosewood and Taggart go to Detroit, obviously, is what you call it. What's wrong with... There's nothing clunky about that?
No, nothing. Not a single thing about it.
It's not like you need to know the names of 2 of the supporting characters in order to understand what the movie is.
Beverly Hills Cops. Because now they're coming.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess
you change who's the cop.
I'm surprised they didn't, especially as this came out a year after Aliens. I'm surprised they didn't go with Beverly Hills Cops.
Yeah,
and it is more of an ensemble piece.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So Beverly Hills Cops and it's got Paul Reiser in it.
Mm-hmm.
Who was also in it? Who was in Aliens the previous year?
Yeah, no.
I wonder if he thought there was going to be like a consecutive annual run of inserting himself into sequels. Because he did it 2 years in a row. He did Aliens. Paul Reiser wasn't in the original Beverly Hills.
No, he is. Yeah.
Was he? Oh, I completely forgot about
really?
that. Okay.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So that doesn't work. He's part of the formula.
This is not my locker. That's his line in the first one.
I thought he was an add-on in 2, but maybe that's just because he seems like exactly the person they would add on. Because of Aliens.
He was there.
They should have done an inversion where, like, where his partner is now Yaphet Kotto, so you do the Aliens inversion.
That's funny.
You take someone from a cast member for Aliens. How would Eddie Murphy wouldn't do well with Yaphet Kotto? I mean, it's essentially like it's just like he'd just be like a more aggressive version of a more aggressive and deadpan version of what Eddie Murphy is.
Right? Yeah. Think
just
of him from Midnight Run. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Alien.
Alonzo
or
Mosley.
Homicide. Yeah. Oh, he is in a Martin Brest film at least, though.
True.
So it wouldn't be that ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, do you need me to go? Are you still waffling about where to go next?
I'm still waffling a little, so it's probably best that you should go since this was such a breeze for you to decide.
It was not a problem.
You immediately discounted Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Sorry, that's just was and still is one of the worst fucking movies I've ever seen.
Really?
So, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, second on my list. No question.
But it seems like that's not just by default for you.
No, not completely by default. There's I think plenty to like in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. It is not as good as people went out of their way to say it was.
And where are they saying this, by the way?
Facebook.
You can say anything on there now. None of it's fact-checked. Literally, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, we're not fact-checking anything anymore, so...
I don't think he was thinking about Axel F posts.
I think he was. He was like, I'm going to contain the anti-Axel F rally from getting a voice on social media. That voice is a singular voice, and it's me. It is the voice of me. Well, I feel like putting Beverly Hills Cop 3 next just out of spite now, because you say you've kept an open mind, but
I very much did, sir.
Your open mind has confirmed what you originally thought, which sort of doesn't sound like an open mind.
That's not my fault. That's the fucking movie's fault. And I'll explain in detail in the episode.
Okay. But I also think that while I think we both had good intentions about keeping an open mind, but I think we both in our own ways singularly failed to keep an open mind. Because my prejudice is about the kind of a movie that Axel F is more egregious to me than certainly a failure of a movie that nonetheless seems like it's directed by someone who has something to say and express.
Ugh.
Axel F is the exact opposite of that. There are still, it's a even and I won't try and argue that it's not a poor showing from John Landis.
You better not.
And but I also like you don't think it's as great a crime as what happened on the set of Twilight Zone, the movie. And you did say that. You said that earlier, specifically to me off mic. But I think we can all agree that was the low point of his directorial career. Yeah, no. Axel F was a. It was such a disappointment to me that
I knew it would be.
It couldn't no, but what was so disappointing about it, and this is what I mean, and it makes it doubly disappointed that I was actually willing to give it a try, even though both my heart and my head told me it was futile to do that. They just can't transcend the mold in which they're made. And for all its faults, Beverly Hills Cop 3 has an occasional touch or flourish that is diverting. So
no, see, that's how I feel about XLF.
That to me, that's more. I just don't think it's a director who's capable of creativity. It's an entirely responsive. It's entirely responsive direction. It takes from what's come before and it adds nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And John Landis, in his own fucking weird way, has got something he wants to get out there in Beverly Hills Cop 3. I don't know if we'll ever know what it is.
To see,
but they're not. You can't. They're not safe choice. None of these are safe choices.
No. Yeah.
Whereas
I think what he wants to
could
get
be called
out,
Beverly Hills Cop safe choice.
I think what Landis wants to get out is his ineptitude, because that movie
get out of directing the movie.
Yeah, that movie looks like it was shot by someone who forgot how to make movies. To me,
do you think that he kept bringing directors in just in case one of them wanted the job and he could just leave that day and say, "Do you want to direct the rest of this?"
Well,
no one would have to know. No one would have to know you did it.
Yeah, I'm gonna save it for the episode, but I think there was so much going on set that was weird.
Yeah.
That affected both his direction and Eddie Murphy as the star.
Sure.
But I'm going to save it.
I think, to me, the greater crime is a surfeit of imagination, which is what I see in XLF. And I don't see that in Beverly Hills Cop 3.
I agree with you that I don't see imagination, and I understand what you're saying about sort of the pre-mold, but
of that kind of film, not just, well, it goes hand in hand and also what they think the franchise is, which is not what the franchise is as expressed in the previous sequels. It's an idea of what the series is that I think is just dead wrong.
All right, well, we'll talk about it when we get there.
But, at least
I like that we're on different planes so that we can argue about it.
We've both reinforced our prejudices.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we were trying not to, but we failed.
Your Honor, I think it was a young
Ghost in Orbit.
Well, I don't want to say, Your Honor, but I think it.
Yeah. I think, it's kind of interesting because we've both taken up positions that are very easy to argue against.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because neither of us have just gone, it doesn't really work, or it's not my kind of thing. We've both gone, this is the nadir of cinema in our own ways. So we've made it harder for ourselves for people to engage.
It's our own fault.
It's like, that sort of, if you catch a libertarian on the right day, They'll say something. They'll say
sounds
something
coherent.
that you believe and
Yeah.
makes sense, and then they'll follow it up with. And by the,
Yeah.
we should all live in huts, and we should blow up the government. Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Hey.
I just agreed with you about taxing millionaires. I don't agree about anything else.
All right. So we both have 2 at the top, and we're flippy floppies on the bottom.
Don't. While we're in the, while we're trying not to misrepresent each other's position, I said nothing about Beverly Hills Cop 3 being at the top, sir.
I didn't say at the top. I said we both have 2
You
at the top.
said 2 at the top. Oh, we both have 2 at the top. I thought you were implying that the Beverly Hills that I put Beverly Hills Cop a close second behind Beverly Hills Cop 2. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, Beverly Hills Cop 3, to your point, is so bad that it made me reconsider whether I was going to put Axel F at the bottom. So it must be pretty bad, right? No, if it was an even half decent movie, I wouldn't think twice about putting Axel F at the bottom.
Wow.
But it's very predictable. As I was compiling the list in my head, I thought, this is pretty much what I did with Indiana Jones and Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. You know, the recency bias.
I like that I can say I just in labeling them, I am 2F3 and you're 2-3F.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I get to go into the army, or I won't get into the army?
I don't know.
Do I get deferment?
I'm going to strip you of your command.
Someone put me in command? Oh, fuck.
Okay.
Although, if we're judging by recent developments, I've got a place at the FBI. I'm as capable of doing the job as the director and deputy director currently are.
Absolutely. Okay. Good, bad.
Yeah.
Do you go so far as to call 2 a good movie? I know where I stand.
I think I do. Yeah. Nothing kind of stops me in my tracks.
Yeah. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah, it doesn't. Look, you know, this is maybe a low bar that is gonna that's gonna bite me on the ass in the future, but it's entertaining and nice to look at. I'm at a stage in my life where I can't/don't ask more than that from a movie.
Mm-hmm. Unless it's made now.
Well, yeah, but that's those movies are by design not entertaining, and are definitely not nice to look at. But you know, I'll wait to the episode to talk about it. But you know, there's certain aspects of the directorial, of the visual style specifically of Tony Scott, which are they're hard to hate. Mm-hmm. Right? You have to really, like, you can find them cheesy and laughable, but you still kind of enjoy what he's doing visually at the same time. I think that's when you talk about having just enough Tony Scott, it's kind of recognizing that what he does is ridiculous, but at the same time it works. Mm-hmm. It works on you as a viewer.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't come out of left field. It's what he does is the essence of entertainment, and at the right moment, it can really be effective. In the right vehicle, it can be really effective, and this is one of those vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would call it I'd call it a good movie.
All right, me too. No qualms. Now I certainly know where one of yours, I believe, sits. The one at the
And I
bottom
know where
of
one
your
of yours
list.
sits.
So both of our bottom of the lists we're calling bad, correct?
Yes.
So you believe Axel F to be a bad movie, and I know for sure
Yes.
that
I wouldn't even call it a movie, but yes.
Beverly Hills Cop 3 is a bad movie.
If we accept the principle that it's a movie, it's a bad one.
It's fucking fuck.
Yeah,
you're like,
you're
like with IP cinema, you're like Dracula looking at the fucking sun. You're just
yeah.
You hate it so much. I guess I
don't want to get out of my coffin for it.
That was more
No,
my noise was more like Frankenstein seeing fire, but the point still stands.
Yeah, no, the point, and I think it's undeniable. But IP cinema plus streaming, the streaming medium is that's a lethal cocktail as far as I'm concerned. That makes it almost unwatchable. I'm as annoyed by what's in the movie as having to watch the Netflix logos before and after the movie.
You don't like the color-bound Netflix logo?
Nope.
Ba-dong.
Enjoyed it in the opening titles of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Do not enjoy it here. Yeah. So it's it's absolutely my kryptonite.
Yeah.
I think it's bad, but it's also the disappointment and the feeling that with a better director and some tweaks here and there, it could have been good, and that really annoys me. It's like every fucking modern day Star Trek is just lack of effort with the IP. Like stains every frame of the movie with lack of effort and care of what they're doing. It is the Star Trek Discovery of Beverly Hills Cop movies.
Well, I haven't watched Discovery.
You'll feel that about Discovery. You're enough of a Star Trek fan. You'll be offended. You'll watch that and you'll go, okay, Tom's not right about this infecting everyone of these kinds of things, but this one he's right about.
Fine.
If you like what Star Trek is, you will hate what Discovery is.
Okay.
And that's on the poster.
Every time I think I have a handle on what truly bothers you about IP cinema, it's
everything.
Turns like
Fucking
into Jello
everything.
and slips through my fingers.
There's no one. It's just the idea that you would waste time and resources on this, and that infects everything. Everybody's time.
So
Kevin Bacon's time.
I bet Kevin Bacon didn't believe for a second his time was wasted. He was like, I got nice shoes on and they're paying me money.
Oh, and well, it's like AI picked a villain in the casting of Kevin Bacon.
There we're gonna completely agree. But we're starting to get into an area that we have to save.
We do have to save.
I guess I really, it's like, I feel like a doctor.
Oh, am I able to convince you that it's a bad movie? Because I think you've already made up your mind that it's a good movie. But if you're wavering, I'll keep heaping this shit on.
I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna call it good just to bother you. But
yeah, No, that reflects everything you've said so far.
But I truly believe that it's good enough for me to call it good.
Fine.
I've watched it twice now, and
I'm not watching it again.
I know you're not. I understand.
So you can go ahead and think you're better than me. I ain't watching it
again. I thought that long before this.
Yeah, true. That's unrelated. Unrelated superiority.
I guess the thing that bothers me is that if I sit down and watch Axel F, I'm thinking, whatever, good enough to have a good time. But as we talk about it, you'll bring up the problems that I'll say, no, I agree with that. You're right about that. But they're like, even in total, when I start like click, 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 adding them up.
Yeah.
As I watch it, they're in total, like I just don't have the number of problems, and each problem is not annoying and big enough for me compared to Beverly Hills Cop 3.
It could just be how we see the world differently.
Yeah.
Here on this particular kind of offering.
And I think generally we know that I'm prone more often to be forgiving of IP cinema.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can find good
true.
within it, even a little bit. Whereas you almost never can find anything that you like.
It's like the classic quote from Northern Ireland Protestant minister Ian Paisley when asked, when a journalist said to him regarding the peace process, Rome wasn't built in a day, and he responded, it should never have been built at all. Actually, he said, it should never have been built at all. And I feel the same way about IP cinema.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so the last question is, for you, Beverly Hills Cop 3, is that a good movie?
It is not a good movie.
All right.
No amount of spite or devil's advocacy is gonna
okay, good.
make me even dream. No, I mean, it's fascinating in its oddness, but that's about as far as it goes.
That I agree with. Yeah.
It's when I say quirky, without intent to be quirky, I think.
That's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah, unintentional quirkiness aside, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I didn't even look into the behind the scenes. I didn't even think about that layer of the film. But yeah, thinking about the film that results, of course, what happens behind the scenes is gonna be like this amazing set of anecdotes. And on that level, I appreciate it. I definitely like it. I have more affection for it than you do. But it's your classic sequel failure.
Yeah, it's an oddball. Strange. All right, well, there you have it. The ranking and the declaring has happened. We are not on the same page.
No.
As I was so worried we would not be on the same page.
You're worried we would be or we wouldn't be?
I was worried that we wouldn't be. But I like that we're not.
Oh, yeah, you should be worried that we are.
Yeah.
Because
it's better for us when we're not, but every once in a while we come across a thing where I think to myself, come on, Tom, this is just so plainly the one, not just a terrible movie, but like clearly the worst in the series, right? No, he says.
And that's how much I hate IP cinema.
Yeah.
And thanks to you, now I have a term to talk about it. I've never called it IP cinema before, but I will call it nothing but now.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We're done. We have ranked, we have declared. It's time to talk about these fucking movies. So you're gonna have to tell us what you think. What do you think of the Beverly Hills Cop series? You know, you're gonna have to wait for the Patreon listeners, but at some point you'll find out what Tom thinks of the original Beverly Hills Cop.
That's right.
Which I dare say is not much. Going to
find out
against,
but then
against
I'll have to watch it
against the stream there.
Against the grain, crossing the streams against the grain,
something like that. I was thinking of a salmon going upstream. Struggling.
Salmon's the opposite of tuna, because tuna goes with the stream, but salmon goes away from the stream. Good for the tuna.
Good for the tuna. Yeah.
Good for the tuna. The opposite. Which in many ways we are the opposite in this particular ranking. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. We'll cover that on Patreon, but it also means I'll have to watch it again, so maybe I'll have a different opinion from the first time I watched
Excellent. It. All right. You're going to have to tell us what you think about this, though. You know what to do. Push the buttons. Do the things. Find the things where you find them. But not that one thing. The other things. Or send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. That's it. When you hear us next, we will be talking Beverly Hills Cop 2, the top of both of our lists. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz, I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Chasing bad guys with Axel Foley. Hell yeah!
So you're already making me regret my decision. Your interpretation of that line.
Yeah, I know, and and you know what? I had another quotable, and I went with that one because I knew it would hit harder after the discussion we just had. This saying the quiet part loud is why I hate fanboy characters in franchise fiction. This is exactly why. The epitome of that. It was meant to wound you.
1 point for Tom. Let me write it down.
Oh, but before we get there, we've got to talk about Beverly Hills Cop 3. So
yeah.
I'm gonna
build
negative
up
50 points down by the time we
stockpile of points.
I'll be like Marge going on that episode of Jeopardy where she's like minus 50,000 in the hole.
Who are three people that are not in my kitchen, Alex?
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.